are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, you beautiful humans. It is Soul Wanderings night, and I am so tickled to be here tonight. It's going to be a great show. As always, I have the most amazing guests who choose to show up as their authentic, beautiful selves that they are. And I am really happy that you're here along for the ride. If you are wondering about Soul Wanderings, if you're new around here, I invite you to go and visit soulwanderings.com. You can learn about me, your host, AJ, and why I do what I do and all the things that I do. It's sprinkled all up in there. Also, we are played here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Check out kgradb.com. That's where you're going to learn more about my show and all of the other amazing shows that are hosted here on the station. We are heard all over the world, and we have thousands and thousands of listeners, and it's so wonderful that we all can connect in this way and talk about all of the things about life, all of the things that we're curious about, all of the things we want answers to. Every show is a little different, but each host does a lot of work to show up for you and share what they're passionate about. So I invite you to go and check them all out. It's a great lineup throughout the week. Also, if you're interested in any of the backstage goodness, there's some things going on there. I'll be sure to share a promo code with you guys later where you can save some money if you decide to join the members area. But let's save that for later. I want to share some really awesome news. I know a lot of you follow me on social media, so you are aware that, and even on the show last week, I kept looking at my phone because I was going to have a grandbaby any moment, and he did arrive. He's healthy, and my son and his wife are super happy. He was born in Germany on the 4th of July. He was born 7'4", and he weighed 7 pounds, 4 ounces, and he was 22 inches long. And, you know, I love numerology, so I thought that was pretty rad. And I'm a grandma now. So thank you for all of the messages and support. You guys have flooded my DMs with, is he here yet? And when you found out he was, all of the support, I feel completely supported and loved by you. I appreciate it very much. And I have sent all of that good energy over to Germany where my children are, and now my grandchild, because it was a rough one. It was a big delivery. It was 38 hours of labor. And everything turned out great. We're so super blessed. And again, I appreciate you guys. Let's stop talking about me, though. We have a great guest tonight. I'm really excited to have him on. He's actually a friend of a friend. So he's here local in Utah where I live. I don't get very many guests here in Utah. Usually they're somewhere far, far away. And it's really neat. I actually have 2 Utah guests lined up this year, or recent, tonight and in the near future. But tonight, let's talk about our guest. His name is Michael Vanderplas, and he is an ICU and psychiatric nurse, and he's been doing that for about 20 years, from my understanding. And he has been in more life and death situations than most. He's saved numerous lives as well as been present during the last moments of others. And it's given him an incredible perspective in the total life spectrum as a holistic healer. And he's also the author of Stay Strong, turn this the right way, Overcome Suicidal Thoughts and Get the Life You Always Wanted. It's a self-help book. It contains comforting words and advice for people struggling with depression, as well as for those who have lost ones to suicide. And I'm sure this topic is no stranger to anyone in the world. We're all touched by it in some way or another. So I am really glad you are here tonight, Michael. I know we're going to have a great, uh, very genuine conversation together.
Well, thanks for having me, AJ. I really appreciate you coming, letting me come on your show and share some of this information. And the big hope is that this is going to help someone, and an even bigger hope that it can help many people. I know that every time I talk about this, it just kind of helps reiterate to me and helps me out a little bit as well. So yeah, thanks for having me on. So yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. And I'm sure that we'll reference this book. I don't know if we can, did I got the lighting right?
I'm seeing it.
Did you get a new cover? I thought I saw a new cover floating around.
Yeah, so I've got a new cover on Amazon. When people purchase it on Amazon, if they buy it through the link that we leave at the end, then that comes through me, and that's the copies that I have, and I usually sign those. Well, I do. I sign those copies that I send out directly. So we've got the two covers. So
I actually was gifted this by Amanda, who referred you to me. So she's such a sweetheart.
She is. Love her.
I have to thank her for the connection. For those of you who are wondering who Amanda is, she actually works with me at Vibe. She's an amazing massage therapist and Reiki practitioner. She has the biggest heart. I just love that girl. So shout out to Amanda. Thank you for the connection. But let's talk about you, Michael. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself? Like, we're obviously going to get to the book and all the contents therein. But who are you, and why did you write a book about suicide?
Yeah.
Loaded question.
No, it's amazing. I just felt a beautiful emotion when you asked that question. Just starting from the beginning, I'm just a guy from Layton, Utah. So small town city, about 30 minutes north of Salt Lake. And I grew up, and I barely graduated high school. I graduated high school with a 1.999 GPA, which really frustrated me because I was like, why couldn't they round up? That's the one thing I did learn in math. And so I kind of was frustrated with that. And then the next year, when I was about 19, I went down to Brazil for 2 years to do some community service. Some of you will know what that is. And learned the Portuguese language, fell in love with the Brazilian people, and have spent multiple times down there. I've been down to Brazil 40 times, done lots of presentations, stuff like that down there. Got back from those 2 years and didn't do much for the first few years. Finally got married, realized that maybe college might be an important idea to try and go forward with life to support a family. So I studied logistics and operational management. And as I was two classes away from getting my degree in logistics, and the economy was kind of dropping. This is around 2000. And I was driving to the last two classes. This is strange. Like, I wasn't expecting to tell this part. I was driving towards the last two classes, and a friend called me up, and she's like, hey, Mike, you need to do nursing with me. You're a healer. It's just who you are. And I'm getting into these prerequisite classes, but I know I'm not going to be able to pass these classes unless I have you as a study buddy. She spoke Portuguese only as well. Well, Portuguese and English, but she was Brazilian as well. And I turned my car around. I pulled off the freeway, turned it around, and drove to the other campus. Went in, basically lied to the teacher to get into the added on classes, and got into nursing. Since then, I've been a nurse since 2005, so about 17 years, but I probably have around 23 to 24 years worth of hours in there. I started out on med-surg, went to ICU, but I've always been dabbling in psych nursing here and there until about 3, 4 years ago. I got certified as a certified trainer of hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, quantum timeline therapy. And I got more and more interested in psychology. I've always been read every night before I go to bed. And so I took about a year and a half away from ICU nursing, which was my heart, and got into a psych-specific hospital. And at that psych-specific hospital, they put me up on the adolescent floors. There's 2 adolescent floors, one for short-term patients who would be there a few days to 2 or 3 weeks, usually, sometimes a bit more. And then there was a long-term one, which it was almost like a mini prison. And that sounds harsh, but that's literally what it is. Some of these guys, and it was only a male floor, were guys who, if they did not go to this place, they would be put in prison, literally. And I just started talking more and more with those youth, and they kept on putting me up on that floor because they said that, that I was able to help there. Well, then a little bit of time passed, and then this bug came around back in 2020. You may have heard of it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I remember calling up a lot of my friends in those first 2 months. I was still doing psych nursing. I called up some of my friends and was just going over ideas because I'd studied a lot and I knew the body very well. And I'd say, are you guys trying this? Are you guys trying this? And I had some different friends who said some things to me that it was a beautiful compliment, and it hurt me quite a bit at the same time. Because they'd ask me, where are you at? And I'd say, oh, I'm at this psych hospital. And I had 2 or 3 friends that said the exact same words. They said, what a waste of talent. And because they knew how I was in the ICU. And then there was a guy named Nick, really amazing psych nurse. This guy got out of nursing school, went straight to psych, which is like jumping in hardcore parkour. Just if you're going to psych, that's not the easiest. And I told him that. I said, I feel like I need to go back into ICU to help out there, because they need me there. And he told me, well, they need you here as well. What you do with the youth is an important thing. So I actually did leave psych nursing, although I'm going back to doing some psych nursing at another psych-specific hospital, a little bit better one. I'm going to be doing some there, but I've been doing ICU throughout this whole bug thing, all variants, in with the sickest of the sick. And I guess if you're asking who I am, I like to believe that I'm a healer. I like to believe that I hold a protective space for those who are feeling weak, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and to stand as kind of like a rod that they can hold to, a strength. And so that's who I believe I am.
I love that you are convicted in your belief of who you are. I feel like that makes you even a stronger and greater healer. And the fact that you combine the holistic healing with the degrees that you have, is even more magnificent. I really want that for all of our healthcare. I really feel like it should go hand in hand.
Sister, let me tell you, it's funny. I'm gonna say something that maybe I'm not supposed to.
There's always that, right?
What?
There's always that when you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
In the healthcare industry is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, exactly. Since I understand hypnosis very well, I talk to my patients a lot. And when they're conscious, I utilize wordings to help them out to help them out that way. And when they're not conscious, that's probably when I talk to them even more. When I have the intubated, sedated patients. And I love doing that to help calm the nerves of the family members as well. When I have a family member in the room, if they're stressed out, then I believe that provides a negative energy to the patient, and I try and calm their nerves so that we can have that holistic healing. So, yeah.
Right. And I find that so very completely important. Yeah. There's a disconnect that happens from, I stopped going to regular doctors.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. And one of them is the lack of compassion. And I understand that there's quotas to be met and appointments to be met and all of this stress that gets put on them. I understand, but it's when you have the compassion and understanding behind your education and desire to help another that you can really make great difference. You can make those changes.
I believe that completely. And that's, if I may, that's kind of what drove me towards writing this book some. I tried doing a whole bunch of business stuff for a long time with understanding NLP, understanding, hypnosis, quantum timeline. I tried to do a whole bunch of sales trainings, and I can do that, and I can do those different things. But I felt this tie to do something, to go for something else. And every time I'd focus on launching a new product or launching a new training or working out, doing some more trainings down in Brazil, I had something that was pulling me back. And one of the biggest things was this book. And the reason why is because when I was with and I think that's probably a reason why I wrote this book as well, is because I had to go back to the ICU in my mind. I had to go and do travel nursing, go through to different places throughout the US and share my information in how to keep patients alive and to take care of those patients, to keep them alive in the acute critical setting. Mm-hmm. But I felt like there was this information that I had that could save lives emotionally and then physically from themselves, that I had to get this information out. And a lot of this information came from when I would have conversations with the youth. And with that, along with books, along with my own, I had 2 periods in my life where I was suicidal as well. No suicide attempts, but suicidal as well. Deep depression for months, years at times, and professional help with that as well. I'd come to this theory that I had never heard before, that I told to some of the psychologists, to some of the licensed clinical social workers, to some of the nurse practitioners that I worked with in the psych hospital. And they'd be like, this is amazing. You need to write a doctoral thesis on this. This is groundbreaking. This is really cool stuff. And so I think when I went back to the ICU, I still felt this drive, like I can't not have this available for people. I have to have this out there to the world so that people can buy it or share it with a friend or hear the message. And that's the real reason why I came out with this book.
Yeah. Well, I find that this book is so important, and the work that you're doing is extremely important, because everybody needs somebody, especially in that crisis situation. A lot of times, and your boots on the ground. So, I just know from having a healing center, completely different from a hospital setting, that a lot of the times when people are in this mindset or have this ideology that they really just want to be heard. They just really want to be validated. And having someone hear them, like really truly hear them, will shift the energy and the vibration of what they're feeling and what they're going through.
Amen. And exactly. And that's the perfect bleed into what I was actually just about to say. So when the patients come in, when they would come in to the psych hospital, we'd have to do this assessment tool. And almost every medical facility does this assessment tool when somebody comes in to be admitted. And it's called the CSSRS, the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. And in it, it has this list of different questions that you're supposed to ask. And it has this order in which you're supposed to ask these questions. And I would ask those questions to, and I say the adolescents, even though I've done this with a lot of adults. For me, the greatest tie is with the adolescents. So that's why I'm going to refer to the adolescents or students or kids, patients, however I say it. But I'd ask them these questions. And sometimes these kids are getting admitted into the hospital at 11 o'clock at night, 2 a.m. in the morning. They've been through this big process of talking with this person and that person, and then I have to do my paperwork. And so I do these questions, but I realized that some of the questions they weren't written in a way that I believed that would give me the best information. And one of the things with that is we'd have these different questions like, how long have you had these, self-harm thoughts? How hard would it be on a scale from 1 to 10 for you to stop thinking about it? How long does it take you to stop thinking about it? A whole bunch of different questions like that. And the last question, though, was written as this. It was written as, why did you try to commit suicide? Why did you want to harm yourself, to hurt yourself? And I realized that if I say why, that's eliciting, there's a context to that that's eliciting an excuse. It's eliciting the ability for the person to give an out, to give some kind of an excuse out of why they're doing it. But if I change the words just a little bit and said, for what purpose, it actually has been shown to tweak the mind a little bit into truly trying to problem solve, not just give an excuse, but to problem solve for them to come up to a reason as to why. As to why, not the why thing, but as to why. And so I would ask them, for what purpose did you try and harm yourself? And it would stop them a little bit. That's what's called a transderviational search of the conscious mind. And what that is the transderviational search is the elongated word from which the word trance comes from. And so it sends them into a slight moment of trance to where they break open their conscious mind and they get into their unconscious mind to truly search for what that answer is. And they would give me an answer. And I'd say at least 95, and that's being very conservative, 95% of the time, it would be this response of, I felt so much pain. I couldn't take it anymore. The weight was too heavy. I just feel so bad. And so it was tied to something like that. And I realized that's really good, but that's not that's kind of the surface level. And I would say it like this. It's the surface level of deep. I heard Jordan Peterson one time talking. He's a clinical psychologist and a research psychologist as well. Taught at Harvard for 7 years, taught at University of Toronto for many years, and now is just on book tours, doing it well. But in one of his lectures that I was listening to online, he said Freud would get to the basement, whereas Carl Jung would go to 7 levels deep in the basement. And so when these people would say, I'm feeling the pain. I'm like, great, we're at the basement. Now let's go deep. Let's go 7 layers down. Let's
opening some boxes.
let's open that stuff up. It's kind of like, I if you don't mind, I sometimes draw things out.
Yeah, actually, I really don't want to interrupt, and I want you to save this thought about, and
Sure.
that gives you an opportunity to look for what you're wanting to share.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because we have to take our first break.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's good.
Okay,
No,
cool.
see, I told you, time flies when you're having fun.
Sure does. Okay.
Hold that thought, and when we get back, we'll hear what you have to share.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Stay close, everyone.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Scrolling all day, time can disappear. Wanna make it count? Why not volunteer?
Posting pics of your food, that takes up time. Time, you've got time
To binge all of season 9, though it got so bad.
Time, you got time. We're gonna grow back and be the same browse you had.
Just a few hours to keep families from harm. Help us end home fires with Sound the Alarm. Volunteer for a day to install free smoke alarms in your community.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Soul Wanderings. I am AJ, and tonight we are hanging out with Michael Vanderplas. He's an ICU and psychiatric nurse who wrote this incredible book, Stay Strong, Overcome Suicidal Thoughts, and Get the Life You Always Wanted. We'll show you how you can get that book later. But in the meantime, Michael, you were sharing with us.
I was.
How you were sharing because you're here sharing with us, right?
Yeah.
How you meet with your clients initially over a Q&A, basically, to try to get to the root of why they're feeling what they're feeling. And exactly. I interrupted you.
Yeah. And so I was going to do just a quick little diagram. And one of the things, I always have paper or pen, and it's cool because I may come up with some other things to show you, which are some of the things that I would explain to the youth when I'd be doing this intake. And as I was saying, we want to go deep. And I see it as kind of like this. Like we have this level here. We have this kind of like level thing that we're going at. And then we go one level deep. And then you ask another question. And that takes it deeper as well. And you keep on doing that to get deep. You were talking. So just kind of like, So just kind of like keep asking questions. And it takes the person deeper. The deeper you ask the questions. And it's actually a technique by the lady who was kind of like the mother of family counseling. Her name was Virginia Satir. And she did this thing called meta model, where she would just pin down and get very specific about patients or clients' problems to the point to where it would almost disappear. Like when they'd realize that maybe it wasn't everything, maybe it wasn't the huge problem, that maybe it was just one little thing. I want to give an example of that before I get into how I would use this with the others. Is my daughter one time. So I've got the best daughter in the world. I always capitalize it whenever I do it on social media because it's a title. It's not just a statement. I just have one kid,
Nice.
one girl, and she's the best kid on the planet. I love this kid so much. And when she was in high school one time, she's like, I'm so stressed out. I was like, with what? Everything. Everything? Yeah, everything. I was like, everything in the world is stressing you out. She's like, yeah. I was like, including taking a shower. Well, no, not taking a shower. Okay, what then? School. So school's stressing you out. Yeah, what specifically? Oh, well, it's this class. It's this math class. Oh, so is everything about the math class horrible? Yeah, it's just the worst thing. So is there not just one little thing that's probably more stressful than the other things? What's the one thing that's more stressful? Well, it's this teacher. Okay, what is it about the teacher? Well, this teacher, she just doesn't listen to me. Okay, cool. And how do you know the teacher doesn't listen to you? Well, I try and ask her questions and she doesn't answer my questions back. Okay, cool. And then we kept on going down and down and down and down until we got to the idea and the realization that maybe there was just a mismatch of communication there. And so I would do the same thing when I would ask these adolescents. And like I said, I've done this with adults as well, but mostly adolescents. I get to this point where I say, what is, for what purpose did you want to harm yourself? And, I need to say this as well. There are some times where, 3, 4, maybe 5% of the time, they would say, I did it for attention. And I want to clarify one thing here, very important. If somebody has an attempt on suicide for attention, there's this negative connotation that we have with that, where it might be this idea of, well, that person doesn't deserve our love and attention. But what's interesting about that is if somebody's willing to tell us that they did it for attention, then just give them freaking attention.
Right.
Like it's a gift that they actually were open enough, as you were talking, that, before I started on this rant about truly listening. If they want attention, then just give them the attention. What if that person is manipulative? Well, it's better that they're alive and have the opportunity to change than the alternative. So I want to do that for that, 3 to 5% that I'm saying. But for that other major portion, with the majority of them, I'd ask them, I'd say, what's going on? For what purpose? And the big example would be, I just hurt so much. Okay, so you hurt so much, so that's the reason why you wanted to commit suicide? Yeah. Well, what makes you hurt so much? And then we start going deep.
Yeah.
Nobody pays attention to me. Okay? When you say nobody, do you mean nobody in the world? No, no one. I'm paying attention to you now. Well, yeah, you're paying attention to me, but my mom doesn't. Okay, so it's your mom that's not paying attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that your mom's not paying attention to you? Well, because I try and share my emotions with her, and she doesn't listen to me. She tells me just to get over it. Okay. Well, what would be the response that you want? And by digging down, by going down into this, we get an idea of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We need to backtrack a little bit with this idea, because some of this is involved. We need to talk a teeny bit about evolutionary psychology, biology. I am a firm believer in a higher power. Don't have 100% definition of what that higher power is, but I believe in a higher power. But with my silly nerd nursing mind, ICU mind that's always reading, I believe very, very strongly that we developed as a species. And with that development, we have the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. I don't want to get into too many numerical, geeky nerd things about it. But
some of us might not be able to keep up.
I start talking sometimes, and then I'm like, pull back a bit, Mike, pull back a bit. But
no,
there's sometimes
we're pretty smart around here. Keep going. We like it.
How many, comment or raise your hand or something like that, but how many of you have seen the picture of the iceberg, and the top of the iceberg is the symbol of the conscious mind, and that huge portion below is that portion of your unconscious mind? Yeah. And with that huge portion of the unconscious mind, that's giving you a connotation, and it's been scientifically proven that
I actually have this from your book.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you.
I actually saved this page because it was interesting to me.
Yeah. So we have so much more processed by the unconscious mind than by the conscious mind. I will throw some numbers out really quickly. We don't need to get into the science of how they discovered this. But some tests were done where they measured some electrical impulses through different parts of the brain. We won't talk about what they are. But with the parts that are tied to the conscious mind, they showed that about 126 bits of information to 133, somewhere around there, were processed per second. 126 to 133 bits of information processed per second in the conscious mind. Now, the original number that they had with the unconscious mind when they first did the research was 2 million bits of information per second. That's been updated with the re-release of the book of the person who I take the study from in 2014 to 11 million. And just close to about a year and a half ago, November of 2020, Dr. Andrew Huberman out of Stanford University. I mean, this guy studies alongside and does stuff with neuroscience alongside Robert Sapolsky, who's just like the godfather of psychology and neuroscience and evolutionary psychology. That the number is now 40 million bits of information per second. Mm-hmm. So with that, we have this different thing. Mm-hmm. So why is that important? Well, we have this huge ability of our unconscious mind to run at least 95% of our daily actions. So I woke up today and, I ate breakfast, I got dressed, I worked out, different order, did some reading, took a nap because I got up very early, family situation today. And I do all these things, but the little steps, the steps of unscrewing my bottle before I drink it, or drinking instantly when I feel thirst and I have water or some beverage available to me. These are patterns, these are habits that are put into us so that we can get through the day. Now, one of the interesting things about this is in getting through the day, this was all put in us to get through the day so that we wouldn't spend so much time thinking about every step we had to take. In evolutionary psychology, the concept of this is that everything that we have physiologically, the beard on my face, my pale skin, was for my survival because my ancestors needed, fur on them from the cold, the Nordic regions of Europe, and the pale skin because I need to be able to absorb more vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, somebody with darker skin might have less hair on their arms, who's from ancestors from a more equatorial region. So everything with us physiologically was for survival. No, this is so cool thing about this is everything with us emotionally, spiritually, mentally is also still in us for our survival. Matt Ridley wrote in his book, The Red Queen, in 1994, he wrote that basically every single psychological, behavioral trait that we have was for our survival as well. If we go back to just 200 years ago, almost our entire day, 16, 18 hours of the day, was spent with one meaning, with one purpose in life, and that was to survive till the next day.
Yeah.
And if we go back a 1,000 years, and I'm out there on the savannah, and I'm looking at this tall grass that's growing, and I'm staring with my foveal vision, with my focused vision at this tree that has a fruit on it, and my dopamine's driving me to go and grab that fruit. If my peripheral vision notices that the grass is blowing over on that other side, it might call my attention to the problem that exists, that there could be a predatory animal over there.
Mm.
Well, that's the same thing with the negative thoughts, with these things that are presenting. And I love this. I get so excited about it because I've had friends who have died at their own hands. And I have talked since releasing this book with more people than you can imagine who have had family members who have died at their own hands. And I love presenting this part because what it is it's this concept by Carl Jung. So Carl Jung, the fantastic, psychoanalyst, he learned some things from Freud, and then he and Freud had a huge argument with a very interesting, almost spooky little story of why they broke up their friendship. But he had this idea. And what this idea was the shadow. And what the shadow is it's looking at the negative part of ourselves to understand ourselves more with this. But with this, he had this other little part of it that's been called by some the reverse mirror image. I forget his exact terminology, but I always utilize the terminology, the reverse mirror image. And it's kind of like this. It's like another visual aid.
I like visual aid.
It's kind of like this. Yeah. The problem presents itself to us.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you want to commit suicide? Because of the pain, because it hurts so much. And you have that there, but that's not what it truly is. If it's saying that they hurt so much, there's a context to the content that is being said. It's kind of like this. It's like, I've got my huge water bottle that best daughter bought me, by the way. But in this, I have water, okay? And the water is the shape of this container. The water is the content. This vessel is the context that gives that the shape. So when we say things, we're frequently not listening, and we're listening to the content of what someone is saying and not the context. So when they present with this, when the person presents with this, I'm just in so much pain. That's not what they're truly trying to say. Without them even realizing it, they are giving a signal of a survival mechanism to realize that that's not what they want. It's calling out their attention to pay attention to the pain, because what they truly want is the 180 of it. They want the wholeness of something else, to not have the pain. Now, like I said before, in the other diagram, we dig deeper and we find out what that pain is. Mm-hmm. Oh, I want connection. I lost a girlfriend. I lost a girlfriend and I feel bad. She was the only one. And for this reason, I'm going to, take away my life. Well, that's not what you're saying. You're saying that you want that connection with somebody. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's the reverse of what it is. And so the subtitle of the book is Overcome Suicidal Thoughts and Live the Life You Always Want, because through the deep dive of either yourself or with the assistance of someone else, psychologist, counselor, family member, clergy leader, life coach, whatever it is, by going deep and finding what that true thing is that was hurting you, you come to the realization of that twist, of coming to the realization of what you truly want. Mm-hmm. And that's where I would point this out to him. I would explain to him, hey guys, you're just thinking these negative thoughts. It's not because you're a bad person. I'd be saying this to these adolescents. And it was the most beautiful thing. We recently moved about a month and a half ago, my family. And as I was moving, I found this crayon drawing that a teenager gave me. And it was representative of the conversation that we had. It was the representative because she had the mountains on them. Because I told her, I was like, get out into nature, walk amongst the nature. It'll help you, and there's that and some other things in my book that help people to overcome suicidal thoughts when they're at the weakest state. But I explained to her as well that one of the reasons why you're having these hard thoughts is you're facing your own dragon. And so she drew like a picture of a dragon on there. And it's so rewarding because I would explain this stuff to these adolescents and I'd see it click in them with a half an hour, 45-minute, hour session that, oh gosh, I'm not a bad person, that I was doing the cutting and there's cutting and then there's cutting. And I've seen it.
I'm sure you've seen it all.
Yeah, like in big ways. And they're like, oh gosh, I don't need to do that. I'm not a bad person. I'm not somebody who doesn't have control of myself. I just didn't know. And when we know, that's the first step. I mean, that's the old G.I. Joe cartoon commercial of the thing at the end,
Knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, knowing is half the battle. Go, Joe, and that's true. We hate confusion. We hate being lost. And so when we understand what that is, then we understand that's not a negative thing. It was just a drive for the positive thing.
Yeah.
So when I talk to the family members who passed away, the family members of those who passed away at their own hands, they would say to me things like, he hurt so much, he did this stuff. I would explain to him, that person was looking for the good. It's not that they wanted to torture you. They wanted to do something bad. They were looking for the good in their life. They just didn't understand. And that's all it is.
Yeah. Do you believe that's the reason every single time? Or do you feel like there are times that maybe someone could possibly have a chemical imbalance or or something that's different from what you're sharing?
Wonderful question. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful question. I'm glad you got to this. This is actually at the end of one of my chapters. I think chapter 6. I actually talk about this some. Sometimes there are chemical imbalances. There's always a majority of anything, and then there's outliers beyond that. Mm-hmm. And so we always have those things. And so with that, there are times where a chemical imbalance could be the factor with that. I heard a psychologist, and he was explaining this. He said, if you are in such pain that you're thinking of taking your life, you might want to consider taking an antidepressant. Now, as I am a medical professional, but I am not saying, I'm not diagnosing, I'm not anybody to take medicine. But I'm willing to say this, that there are times where maybe taking that antidepressant might help you.
Yeah.
For a third of the people, it doesn't really work out with the first one that they take. And so it might not, but it might be something that is a chemical imbalance. Mm-hmm. There are outliers in population to where some people have some form of mental disease to where it might not be curable through just medication. It could be a behavioral disorder. There's a difference between psychological and behavioral disorders. Behaviorals are usually more treated with counseling of some sort through psychologists, licensed clinical social worker. The psychological, the psych problem could be treated with medication. So it could be that. And here's the thing, like with myself, and I'll say this quickly, is with myself, I know that I took antidepressants for about 7 or 8 months. I took a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, SSRI. I can't remember which one. I think it was Celexa. But I did it for this purpose, and this is how I took it. And this is how they were supposed to be diagnosed. So this is in medical books as how it should be diagnosed, how it should be prescribed, is this. I knew that I was going to go to a counselor, and I knew that I was going to face some heavy crap. But I also knew that it was going to take 2 to 4 weeks for this medication to take effect. Mm-hmm. And so I started taking them the moment I started doing the psychological work with the psychologist. And I took it because during those first 2 weeks, I was just giving the background story. Then when we started getting into the heavy work, I had this thing that was kind of like a spotter belt or a safety belt to help me as I was doing the counseling. Those medications are great to assist you as you are doing the counseling, as you're doing the work in that way. There could be a lithium imbalance or something like that. That's something to be seen with a doctor. With that said, after I had overcome a lot of that stuff, after I've gotten that all off, I talked with the doctor and we tapered it down appropriately. If you do not taper those medications down and you stop suddenly, that can have physical effects on you that can physically make it dangerous for your own physical health. So please consult a medical professional on that.
Thank you for the notation on that. It really is important. I've seen people just drop their medications, and in fact, I've done that in my life, and it's not with antidepressants, but other medications, and it really can take a toll and affect you in some negative ways. But I like that you brought up that you could have that tool as a temporary assistance for you when you're going through some heavier stuff, just to get you through it, because life's not easy, and we've been so conditioned not to talk about our true feelings or share what we need, and it just builds up and builds up, which creates an environment for us in our minds to think that all of the reasons you gave us, like no one's listening, everything is hard.
Yeah.
All of the reasons that people come up with where they would want to do something that is so final. But when we get back from the break, it's our last break. Second hour, we'll go commercial free so we can dive in a little deeper.
Yeah.
I love the deep dives, and it's obvious you do as well. We can talk more about reasons and then also how we can assist others in these types of situations.
Amen.
Thank you. We'll be right back, everyone. Stay close.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Scrolling all day, time can disappear. Wanna make it count? Why not volunteer?
Posting pics of your food, that takes up time. Time, you've got time.
To binge all of season 9, though it got so bad.
Time, you got time. We're gonna grow back and be the same browse you had.
Just a few hours to keep families from harm. Help us end home fires with Sound the Alarm. Volunteer for a day to install free smoke alarms in your community.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Soul Wanderings, and I am AJ Rasmussen. I'm your host. I have an air conditioner blowing hair in my mouth. That was good. Tonight, we are visiting with Michael Vanderplas, and we'll get to him again here in just a moment. But before we do, I always share with you guys, or if you're new, I want to make sure you know there are ways that you can join our membership area on kgradb.com. It's a really cool place. If you guys haven't even just gone to the station and checked it out, I really would like for you to do that, because there is a plethora of shows, amazing show hosts. They put in a lot of time and effort into doing what they do. They're passionate about it. They plan on it. They spend their time and energy on it. And there's stuff for everyone. There's stuff of like paranormal, spiritual, ufology, cryptozoology, paleontology, all of the stuff that we're curious about and are seeking for deeper answers. Doing the deep dive. I love that. And behind all of the live shows and the podcasts that are hosted here on the station, There's exclusive content that you can get your hands on, and there are different membership tiers that you can join. But if you ever are interested in getting an annual membership, I have a promo code for you to use, which is SOUL21, SOUL21. And that gives you 30% off of your annual membership. So that's quite a big chunk of change. And they have a bunch of stuff now. I know they're creating more, so they're going to have a lot more for you guys to check out. And I just think it's a really cool place. There's also a chat room. So if you want to meet like-minded people and have these conversations during and between shows, you can do that. You can meet new friends and make those connections. It's just a cool place to be. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. As always, I love being here. I'm so passionate about connecting with all of you and wandering and getting to know you on a deeper level. Tonight, like I said, our guest is Michael. He wrote this book, Stay Strong, Overcome Suicidal Thoughts, and Get the Life You Always Wanted. And you'll be able to find this book on Amazon and on your website too, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like that. If you're concerned about helping me out financially, on my website is better. Amazon takes a large amount.
Yes. They have a way. Go to staystrongbook.com. It's also here on the screen. It will be flashed repeatedly through the remainder of the show, so you can jot it down or take a screenshot, however you're hanging out with us tonight. I'm just delighted that you're here. This is good stuff. I think it's an important topic that we are sharing tonight, not only because it's something that everyone has been affected by on some level or another, but I feel like everyone probably has had some level of depression, and maybe the thought has even crossed through their mind, right? Because life can be really hard. It can be really tragic. It can be a lot of heavy things. If we don't understand how to handle those situations in a healthy way, and most of us don't, a lot of us don't have an upbringing to know how to talk about our feelings, how to deal with stressful situations, how to connect with other people so that we're not feeling alone. And those things are so important. But I also feel like, and you'd know better than I, but I don't always feel like it's a depression thing. I also feel like it could be a chemical imbalance. I also feel like it could be the season. I know a lot of people get dark in the winter. I never experienced that until the last couple of years, and I'm a pretty happy soul. Even when things are hard, I try to see the silver lining in everything. But I know in the winter, things get heavy and I don't have a reason why. And sometimes there just isn't a reason. It's just this energy that overcomes you. Also, I know elevation's a thing. I live in Utah, and I know we have a very, so does Michael. We have a very high suicide rate here. And I think that's a combination of a lot of things, but I think elevation plays a hand in it. But everything that you've shared with us up until this point has been very beneficial for us to know, because we may have a situation with somebody that's close to us, or even in passing at the grocery store. I've had conversations with complete strangers who are having like an emotional breakdown in the produce aisle, or we all just can break at any moment. And so being aware of how to handle these situations, or being able to be like that good friend who's there for someone else, having these conversations like you're doing tonight with us, Michael, are so important so that we can show up for other people and also be aware of our own mental health.
Yeah.
So how do we become good listeners? Like, how do we be better listeners so that we can show up for someone else, first of all?
If you don't mind, I want to circle back to that in just a minute.
Okay.
I'd like to touch on, and please remind me, because I start talking and focusing on other things.
No, it's totally good, because the show's about you. Yeah. But this subject, like, we could talk about so many things,
but
right?
I definitely want to talk about the listening. But I just wanted to point out a few things real quick. I don't want to talk about too many facts, statistics about suicide right now, numbers, things like that.
I don't know if
that,
that's necessarily important
yeah,
right
it's
now.
not as important. That's in the first and second chapter of the book if you want it. However, two things that are important, because as you said, just by knowing it helps us to avoid it, is the elevation thing and the season thing. One thing that's a little bit of a misconception and not known widely is winter is not actually the season where most suicides happen.
Wow.
Which was surprising to me when I was doing research on the book, because I always thought that. And as I was reading, I was like, okay, let's find some studies. Actually found studies that it is higher right about now, the end of spring into the first half of summer. And there's some reasoning with this as well. As you were talking about, is there a chemical imbalance? So some of the things that they think that it could be is, well, there's a higher incidence of suicide amongst lower income people, men, people who work outside in hard, heavy things. One of the ideas physically, why they believe that may be higher at this point in time is because there's more allergens. There's more things that cause allergy outside. And that sometimes those allergens cause histamine responses that drive and cut some serotonin levels.
Wow.
Another interesting thing with that is there's a mental side to it as well, an emotional side. So these people got through the dark, dismal, cold winter. And I'm saying that physically and emotionally. We see it as a dark time. We see it as a time where we hibernate in emotionally. And when the spring is coming, we see all the animals, we see nature, and we're driven by nature because for, all those years of evolution, as the species, as we are estimated 190 to 240,000 years, we've seen this. But so there's this anticipation, there's this hope that we're going to get out, that we're going to do more, that this year is going to be my year of success. Mm-hmm. And now that summer is coming, this is where it's going to be. And then when the people don't have that success or they don't see the change, there's this kicker of, darn, I'm in my same negative routine, might as well check out. And then there's the belief that because the person is outside and physically doing more things, that they're more apt to take physical action on it. So I just wanted to point that out on the season thing, because it's something to watch for now.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
you wouldn't think it would be right now. I don't have that experience for myself, like I said, but I could see how that would be accurate now that it's been pointed out.
For me, it's not that. For me, winter gets bummy for me sometimes. I'm like,
Can't go outside as easily and have the sunshine on our face. Yeah.
But for some of these people who are suffering through depression, that's a thing. Altitude, I do want to touch on this just really quickly. We won't touch on all the other things, but altitude is a factor. And you stated Utah. Utah has a higher altitude. There's actually the 6 states with this. 6, I guess 6 is not this, 6 is this. The 6 states that have the highest per capita suicide rates are the 6 states with the highest elevation. Mm. One of those is Alaska. The other 5 are what's called the suicide belt. And those states are Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico. It's this belt where we have the highest elevation. There's studies that have been done here in the state of Utah, replicated in the state of Utah at the University of Utah, and then also replicated in Andazula, Spain, which is a higher elevation place, and then also Saudi Arabia. I believe there's one in Peru, but I'm not 100% sure, that at higher elevations there as well. When it's over 3,000 feet elevation, that there is a change in it, and it affects females more than males in altitude. So that's an interesting thing.
That is.
Now, getting back to, now that I got that out of my mind, so I can focus more on.
No, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. The listening thing.
Yeah.
How do we get better at listening? We're going to talk about an idea from Carl Rogers, the psychologist, here in just a minute. But before I do that, before I give that specific technique, I want to say this. You get better at listening by listening. And I see Marco put up, I love Utah. I love Utah too. Even though we have this high altitude, those other things, this is my place.
Yeah.
And I've traveled over 1 million miles on airplanes. I've seen a lot of the world. I've seen a lot of countries many times, but I love this place. With the listening, a big part of it is you get better at listening by listening. And listening to not respond.
Yes.
Listening to, if you say a question, I mean, Carl Rogers wrote a book called Active Listening, and you've probably heard some aspect of it in some work orientation thing where they're saying, ask questions that bring stuff out. And that's true, but don't do it with the intention to eventually prove your point. Listen to listen. Ask the questions to understand. Seek to understand, not to be understood. Mm. And I think the biggest way that we get to that, before explaining this fantastic technique by Rogers, is this. We do that by caring. When you have the love in your heart, when you care about that person, when you feel the empathy, when you truly care about that person, you will be listening to them. You cut out the time and you leave the time to the side. You don't worry about the protocols. You don't worry about how is this going to look on Instagram. You spend the moment. You breathe. You calm down. You get in the moment. Connect with their eyes. Follow the breathing that they're breathing. Connection breathing is a huge thing. I've done this.
Very powerful.
Yes. I did it on an airplane once, and I've done it with 2 other patients. Like there's a medical emergency on an airplane once down to Brazil. And, you know, the girl was speaking and she was talking really fast, and she was very, very anxious. She was actually having a panic attack, and the blood was bleeding so fast and beating so fast that it was like hurting her kidney some. And she was talking and this is how she was breathing. And so when I went to her, I started speaking like her. We build rapport physiologically with body language. And so I started saying, are you doing okay? And I started focusing on how she was breathing. And when she would breathe in, I'd breathe in. And we started doing that for a few minutes. And I was getting almost hyperventilated.
I would say.
Yeah. But then after a while, I'd be like, oh, yeah. And I would do that. And it was amazing because I'd look in her eyes with the intention. Mm-hmm. I have friends that I do and clients that I do coaching with sometimes. And when we're doing like the therapeutic parts, I focus in not just on looking at them, but with this intention. It's like sending just out this beam of energy of, I want good for you. And so I focus in, and you focus in on them, and then they know that that's the time to breathe, and then kept going active. And then after a while, we were just doing normal box breathing, you know, just 4 count in, 4 count hold, 4 count out, 4 count hold. It's just a simple box breathe. We brought it down. And so focus in on the person. Have the intention of listening, the intention of understanding. And that is one of the deepest ways that you can learn to communicate with somebody, to listen. I said I do these trainings in neurolinguistic programming. I'm doing one at the end of October, and for 2.5 days, we talk about language patterns, multiple language patterns. I talked some about the Virginia Satir. And what she did is how she would do the meta model and dive down, ask specifics. Okay. And there's a time to do, Milton model as well, where you make it as broad as possible, but sometimes ask specifics. Well, how specifically? What's an example of that? Right? Like literally, if you're taking notes and you're listening on this, or if you haven't, maybe take a note right now and write those 2 sentences down. How specifically? Oh, I feel pain. How specifically? How specifically do you feel the pain? What's an example of that? Well, how specifically? In what way? Mm-hmm. Asking these questions that dig deep, because sometimes it's just coming to that realization that blows it up, but that helps you to understand them more. There's times where I talk with clients and they'll say some problem. And for me, I think that's obviously that I have an idea, that I know what that problem is, but I'll still ask those kinds of questions. And then what's interesting is sometimes what they tell me back as the answer is not that thing that I thought was the problem. It could be something completely different. Two of the greatest problems that we have as a human species is, one, we think that everybody can read our minds. Mm-hmm. And 2, we think that we can read everybody's. Ask questions.
Yeah, we make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah. I heard something about assumptions, right? That makes sense.
It's true. On the flip side of that, however, what are some things that would not be good to say to somebody who is in that crisis mode? Because I've heard some people who I really feel had good intentions trying to assist, but when they've said certain things, I was like, oh, because I don't think that would have been the right thing to say.
It's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit difficult to say because each situation is different, and there's variables, and so that's the thing. With that said, I think one of the biggest things that would be a negative would be to belittle it in any way. Mm-hmm. To simply say something like, oh, you're going to be fine. Oh, you're okay. Oh, I understand. To me, and I tell people this, one of the greatest insults that I could say to you is that I understand if I do not understand. If I have not been in that situation or a situation similar to it, and I say, oh, I understand. No, you don't. You haven't been similar.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to say, but also we may understand, but we understand in our own way.
Yes.
So I don't feel like ever saying I understand is even for me personally, I just kind of cringe when I hear that.
Yeah,
because
same.
Do you understand? Have you been through this exact situation?
We're tracking you and I. So one of the things that I say, 2 of the things that I say is, I can't imagine. Mm-hmm. Or I'll say, if I kind of get it, I kind of understand what they're saying to me, I'll say, I get it. Mm-hmm. Here are some other things that you can say to people to help draw more out. I've got to give credit to a coach of mine, a trainer of mine who's helped me multiple times in my life. The guy's name is Steph Shafidel. Super cool guy, Stefan. And he does this. And he's like the best example. The best example I've ever seen of it is he'll do these few things. He'll go, yeah. Okay. And that's all he does. Oh my word. when you are silent and you open up space and you are courageous enough to shut the F up and not talk for a second, it is amazing what people will say to you.
You're right.
So simply, there's a technique in sales called saying the first person who talks loses, meaning the first person who talks bought from the other person. And so what that is if you are quiet, at least 9 times out of 10, the other person's going to talk. You know, it's rougher with the adolescents. Let me tell you, the adolescents, they're better at holding on to that sense. But a lot of the times you can just be like,
yeah, I agree. Then they tend to spill out what exactly is going on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they know they have your attention at that point. And that's what they wanted. They wanted either the attention, they want someone to hear them, they want to have a connection. And you're offering that. You're giving them a space for that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I was thinking as well is, you know, you were saying before the break, you were saying like, what are the reasons? You know, we maybe discuss a little bit more of the reasons. Well, the way that I like to say it, and this is a simplification. Everything is a simplification on this planet because there's so many variables that we just generalize. But I like to do it like this, like throw 3 points. And these 3 points, I think this is why somebody thinks of suicide, is because they don't have one or more of these things: identity, connection, direction. When we have all 3 of these, we have a foundation upon which something can sit. But if I have identity and direction, but no connection, nothing. Identity, connection, you know, direction, connection, no identity, nothing.
Right.
If we're missing one of them, it doesn't sit. We don't have that foundation. But when we have each one of those, when we focus on building one of those things, it helps us to obtain the other 2 things. My mother was a wonderful woman. She died about 1.5 years ago, 86 years old, lived a great life. But it was a rough one. She was very poor. She was legally blind. Don't know if my mom ever really saw me, you know, and very fuzzy vision, very difficult. She was adopted. She was put into foster care when she was young, 2-3 years old. She was adopted when she was 8. And her name was changed. They changed her name. And I thought about that. I thought she lost her identity, literally had lost her identity. And that's one of the reasons why she probably had such a difficulty of having connection with other people, because when you know who you are, you're able to talk confidently with someone else. And you're willing and you're able to accept that other person, even if they have errors, even if they have something against you and they're negative and spiteful towards you. If you have identity of you, like Marcus Aurelius says, you know, you can basically just push that person off. You don't need to worry about them. Rise above it.
Right.
And the same thing is when you have that identity, you know what direction you're going towards. And you have the connection of those people who are like-minded like you. Because there's plenty of people who aren't. I mean, there's 7-8 billion on the planet. There's plenty of people who won't be. But there's a lot of people who will be. And so I think one of the biggest things with this, and I talk about this in the book as well, later on in the book, is that we find meaning for ourselves. And by finding meaning in our lives, it gives us all 3 of these. Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, he was a physician prior to World War II. Yet in 1948, he actually graduated with a philosophy degree. And he wrote a few different books. The first book that he wrote and released was in 1947. You probably already know what I'm talking about, but we'll just pop it out here for everybody else. It was called Man's Search for Meaning. And it was based on some ideas that he had before the war and before he got put into concentration camps, 4 of them.
Yeah.
4 concentration camps over 3 years. And he was earlier on in the war, was put in there. Hitler's final solution was towards the end, where he was doing the dramatic, drastic, horrible thing of just trying to genocide the Jewish people. But prior to that, most people's average amount of time that they would live in these concentration/work camps, work to death camps, was about 8 months. This guy lived for 3 years. And that's for 2 major reasons. One, he was a physician, so he got to work in the infirmary and got to sometimes have a day off from work. And also, he'd sometimes get an extra portion of food. And those little things kept him going. But what was bigger for him is he realized, along with a few of his friends, that if he had a reason to live, if he found a meaning, that would drive him and pull him through. Just like when we find a reason, or when we help someone else find their reason, it pulls them through. He noticed that people who had set a date, maybe it was the end of the year, maybe it was, the Americans, Canadians, they're going to save us, the English, they're going to save us by December 31st. And the new year, everything's going to be good. When he'd see some of these people who are depending on that, as they'd see it get closer, those closer days, they'd start to see the light go from their eyes. And him and his friends said, these people who would stow away a few last puffs or last cigarette or small teeny morsel of food that they held of bread for like the past 2 weeks, they'd see them eat that person would lose the meaning to live. And within the next 36 hours, they would die. So when we find the meaning, which is the reverse of the problem, that drives them forward. Now, one of the shortcuts, the biggest shortcut that we can take in finding meaning for our lives is by helping others. By losing ourselves in the help of others, we find meaning.
Yes.
If I may tell a story.
We love stories around here.
Great. So this is a bad story, and then it turns into a good story. So 2013, driving out from Salt Lake City to Black Rock City, Nevada, to a big event out there known as Burning Man. I was driving out there, and the route was supposed to take us, about 14 hours to get there. We had early entrance pass because I had a medical pass to work as a medical professional out there. But it took us 42 hours. Our truck broke down 3 times. And the second time that the truck broke down, this guy that I was next to, it broke down. 3 guys slept in the truck. We had the trailer full of stuff, and we just had the loft of the trailer that was open. But there was a guy there who I had known for about 2 months, not super well, but well enough. And he had been vomiting all day long. We thought that it was food poisoning, something like that. And I didn't want to lay next to him. So I put 2 chairs out and 2 camping chairs out, and had shorts, t-shirt, flip-flops on and was sleeping out there until it was 52 degrees and I couldn't sleep out there anymore. And so I finally decided I need to get under this blanket with this guy. Got up to get under the blanket. Guy looked at me like, what the heck are you doing? Told him, hey man, I'm tired. He looked at me like he was going to punch me. And I'm like, and we had an argument about like at the very beginning of the trip. I was okay with it, but he wasn't yet. And I said, hey man, I just need some sleep. And he's like, okay. About an hour and a half later, he was coughing really bad. I turn around, I kind of roll around because we were butt to butt, you know, and I roll over and I look at him and I say, are you okay? And he just kind of nods his head pretty vigorously. But I rolled back to sleep because I was dead tired, had very little sleep for the 2 days previous. And then about another hour and a half, 2 hours later, I wake up and I'm sitting there and I'm just sitting next to this guy. And then my friend Kodiak, he opens the door to the trailer because we set I woke up at 6:13 and he had set his clock for 6:15 and I set my clock for 6:15. And Kodiak opens the door and he says, hey, wake so-and-so up. So I go to wake the guy up and I shake him and he wasn't there. His body was, but he wasn't. That process of dealing with that was difficult for me. I'm a healer. My patients don't die. I mean, my number count is ridiculously low. My patients usually have incredibly good outcomes. And not only did this guy next to me pass away, and we later found out why, and there would have been, if I would have been in the hospital and seen everything happen, I still wouldn't have been able to. But in my mind, I had lost my identity of who I was. Mm. I was a healer and I didn't heal this guy. His brother told us to go on to the event. We went on to the event. We celebrated him. Came home. First shift back at the hospital I was working at. I was a hospital supervisor at that time. I get a call in that they've got a patient who's coming in through the ER. This patient comes in through the ER and it's cardiac arrest. We do everything perfect on him. We do everything to try and bring him back. Doesn't work. I walk out of the room. It's Nurse Cheryl. She comes yelling just seconds after I leave. She's like, Mike, come back in the room. I go back in the room. I was like, what's going on? She's like, you remember so-and-so? And she reminds me of this nurse who used to work with us in that ER. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That guy taught me how to do trauma scales on people. And, you know, we gone fishing, went shooting together. Why? It's like, that's him on the table. 2 weeks later, my best friend dies in a house fire that he tried to put out. Now, all this in less than a month. And I did okay at work for a week or so. But then there was one day I got done with a shift. I was doing night shifts. I got done with the shift and it was so rough that I couldn't handle it. So I talked with the chief nursing officer, and then I went and I talked with HR, and I told them both, just through my tears, like bawling, not just a few cries, like gross out boogers and everything. I told them, I got to go home and I'm not sure if or when I'm coming back, but I can't do this. And I went home and I got into bed, and that's where I stayed. And my wife and my daughter would bring me some food sometimes and some water and stuff. And sometimes I'd go to the bathroom, you know. But I just laid in bed for days. After 11 days, there was one day where I had a purpose. I had a direction. I had a meaning in my life, something for me to go for. And I went after this one goal that on that day was the hardest goal for me around. So I got up out of bed and I took a shower. For 11 days, I had laid in bed without even the purpose, without even the meaning, without even the drive, without even the identity of who I was to take a shower. But I took that shower. 2 or 3 days later, my daughter had a birthday party with a friend. And she was doing it down at the Gateway, which is downtown in Salt Lake City, which was close to 2 homeless shelters at that point in time. I dropped her off and I saw these homeless shelters. And I thought, I feel so bad about me. Maybe I could do something nice and feel good. So I stopped by home, which was only like 10, 15 minutes away at that time. And I grabbed my wife and I was like, come with me. She didn't know what I was doing. And she said, what are we doing? And I was like, just come with me. Went to Little Caesars, picked up 10 $5 pizzas, put them in the back of the Jeep. Got there to the homeless shelter, opened up the back of the Jeep. They were gone within 30 seconds, minute max. Didn't say anything to anyone. Didn't say you're welcome, nothing. Closed the door, drove off. Didn't tell people. A few weeks before all of this stuff had happened, before those guys had passed away, I had agreed to sign up for a medical mission in El Salvador. So I went with Operation Walk down to El Salvador. Went down there, hadn't nursed for about 2 months, hadn't done any nursing for about 2 months. Hadn't been back to work, was using a lot of PTO, stuff like that. And we went down there. And we worked our asses off. Our butts off. We worked incredibly hard. 14, 16-hour days. We did 54 surgeries in 4.5 days, orthopedic surgeries. And I was in charge of the post-surgical unit. And on some of these days when we get this time off for the few hours, there was 2 occasions where we went to the pediatric area, and I dressed up like Thor, and some other friends had some stuff, and we had candy, and we went to the pediatric place.
So good.
The last night that we were there, we were having dinner together. We'd had dinner together almost every night. But we were having dinner together at Sheraton Hotel downtown where we were staying. And they asked those of us who wanted to say what that event of helping those other people meant to us. And I remember a lot of people had said some stuff. And I got up and I said, I hadn't nursed for 2 months. And I kind of told him the story. I said, I didn't know if I was ever going to return. But when I get back home, I'm going to have the strength to come back. And some of the people told me, they said, we never would have known. You just took charge. You just got stuff done. That story has a lot of different lessons. The main one that I wanted to get to is, through service to others, I found my identity. It doesn't need to be a trip to another country to do medical stuff. You see the person who's having a hard day, you can smile. Say, hope it gets better. Hey, how you doing? Just saying, how you doing? So that they're acknowledged as a human being.
Right.
person on the side of the road asking for $5 that you never give it to because, they have nicer shoes than you and you don't believe that they're really needing it. Give them $5. Maybe, what the heck? Looking at a kid who just drew a picture and saying, that's an amazingly beautiful picture. Something. Find identity and connection through that and find meaning in your life, because the meaning is what will drive you through. It's the thing that will pull you through. There's another fantastic line that I'm going to quote from Jordan Peterson, because I love to give credit to those who have taught me. But he says, you can either live a life of meaning or you can live a life void of responsibility. Take the responsibility on yourself. Do the hard path. The obstacle is the way. We will all die one day, but not yet. Make your life a life of meaning. Put the weight on your shoulders and move forward with a purpose. And that's where happiness comes from. The search for happiness that everybody talks about with, all the Instagram stuff like that, that's going to cause them the greatest depression.
And it does. Mm-hmm.
Because you're trying for something that's not real. Happiness comes in the moments you're not expecting it. The peace, all these wonderful things come to us at these, the happiest moments fall upon us. They're not planned. Yes. Because that anticipation is not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
I like to also say, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but I also like to say that there's basically 3 stages of recovery from these dark thoughts. 1 is the I am enough stage. And that's right after, or right while you're in it and while you or that loved one is thinking of those negative things. And at that stage, that's all it's got to be, is I'm enough.
That is a powerful statement.
It is a powerful statement.
And it's very hard for people to say.
Yeah. I don't say it anymore because I'm not in that stage. I say it, I lovingly accept it for other people.
Mm-hmm.
For when people are saying I am enough, I believe I'm enough. It's just something that's common with me now. But it's a very important stage for people to get to. And it could be the simplest of things. Another story, this one's quicker.
Oh, no, I love your message. And I know I'm not alone in that.
So the first time where I was suicidal, I was 23 and had a rough breakup with a girl. So
the story goes.
So the story goes. This is not the first time this story's been told, huh? Just change guy, girl, or whoever.
I think everyone has that feeling, right? After a big breakup.
Oh yeah, you feel just empty. You feel bummed out and like you're not enough. You don't have that connection.
Right.
And I'd seen some rough stuff when I was doing the community service in Brazil. For those 2 years, I lived in 4 of the top 17 most dangerous cities in the world. And I lived in the roughest areas of those cities, and I'd seen some stuff. And then I had some stuff from when I was a kid too. A lot of us have some kid problems. And my buddy, Justin, he took me to a psychologist, and he's like, hey man, come to the psychologist. I'm going to do the first half of the session, and the last 20, 25 minutes we'll give to you. So after 20, 25 minutes, he takes me in, And it's actually this guy who had helped train me when I was 16 to help others through suicidal thoughts and to help others with addiction recovery. I was in this group in high school with it. So I've been doing this kind of stuff for like 30 plus years. And the guy said, I recognize you, but your eyes have a lot more pain in it. I was like, wow, that knocked me. But then we got done talking a bit. He's like, I think we should see each other next week. I think it'd be good. We'll work it out somehow. He goes, can you promise me you'll be safe till next week? Now, this is a good lesson. This is called a contract. And so if you have a loved one, use one of these contracts. It can just be verbal, but getting that commitment from them helps to save people's lives. Literally.
I agree.
Literally. Just getting them to promise that they will be safe for this amount of time saves lives. And so he said to me, he's like, can you stay safe till next week? And I thought about it and I was very literal. I was like, no, I can't promise you that. Like I had the hope, I had the ideas that I maybe could, but I couldn't promise him that. He goes, well, how about a day? I was like, no. I was like, ooh. He goes, well, how about for the next hour? And this is where I started to like kind of shake and rock a little bit and get nervous. And I was like, I can't. I started thinking like, I might go home. This might be now. He goes, how about for the next minute? I literally started crying because I realized how deep I was in that hole. And he said, can you take one more breath? Yeah, I can do that. I can take one more breath. I can do that. I can breathe. I can take a breath. He's like, okay, cool. Let's do it. Cool. Okay. Just one more breath till the next breath, And that is literally what kept me alive for the next 2 weeks.
Incredible.
So some of the lessons here, a very literal one, but an easy one. Breathe. Get through one breath. And if you have to break that down, get through the inspiration and then get through the expiration of that breath. Literally, if you're at the point to where you need to just breathe to survive, then do that. 2, that little thing was that I am enough. I am enough to breathe in and out one more time. That was meaning. So do that. That's the I am enough. The story after that is this. All these years later, here I am. All these years later, I do well for myself financially. Let's just say that. I have written a book. I don't know how many lives I saved. I'm going down to Brazil in, 2 months on 2 different occasions to do some public speaking down there, to speak with some departments of health, to speak with some university groups. I've got the best daughter on the planet. We've already covered that.
Yes, we did. I love that.
I have a wife who just finished chemo last week, 2 weeks ago. Even though she still has a trek ahead of her, she's there. I have the love and admiration of many friends. What you or the other people have gone through or are going through is a portion of life. For some, those portions are longer. For some, it's shorter. But it's things that we can move through.
They're all very temporary.
They're all very temporary. And suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Sounds like a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
If you're considering it, please consider the thought that your life is not your own. because the void and the pain that it leaves for those who are left behind lasts decades, if not an entire lifetime. Reach out. There's help. There's the National Suicide Hotline. There's YouTube videos. There's friends. There's family. Read a book. There was one time I stopped by this guy's place. He sold personal development stuff. I stopped by his office. It was the year anniversary after my buddy Andrew had died, my best friend that died in the house fire that I talked about. And I was sad, and I was having this really rough moment. And I stopped by that building and they were closed. It was like 15 minutes after they closed. And he had this DVD. Well, it's a CD. It's a CD. Tells you how long ago, huh? He had this CD. And in it, he said how it helped you build a stronger mind. And I remember I knocked on the door because I saw a light in the back, and this one girl comes to the front, which is probably scary for her to see this knocking on the door late at night. She's with no one else, but she opens the door and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I need that." I was pointing to it on the wall. I said, I need that. I need that. And she's like, "Well, everything's closed. I don't have a way to collect the money for it." I said, I don't care. I'll bring you double the money tomorrow. I need that. I need that thing. I need that. I said, "I promise you I'll bring it tomorrow." And she looked at me in the eyes. She said, "I know you will." And she got a copy and she gave it to me. And I didn't listen to that thing for months. But for some reason, just that token had it for me. And that token can be anything. That token can be getting to, your birthday, getting to your friend's birthday, and then set a token after that. There's help available.
It doesn't have to be a big thing. It's just a little thing.
No.
And I love that you shared the connection to your breath. I feel like so many of us forget how powerful our breath is. And we forget that it just comes so easily to us. But when we are conscious and aware of the power behind our breath and bringing us in the here and now, how it can literally move mountains and shift thoughts and our whole experience.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I know we just have a few minutes to.
Yeah, we have about 2 more minutes.
Okay. That's one of the things that I wanted to say. Breathe. Go for a hike. There's some other tips in the book, but just saying this real quick. Breathe. Go for a hike. Time in nature, literally the way that your eyes have to move as you go for a walk around your block if it's safe. Being outside, the way your eyes naturally shift creates natural EMDR, which helps your brain to process. Get sleep. Sleep 6.5 to 8.5 hours a night.
Incredible, yes.
Eat healthy foods. Some of these things are so basic, but they make the biggest changes. You do some of those things. You do those 4 things, and the likelihood that some of your problems resolve are amazing. Amazing. Don't know what else to say. Those 2 hours did go quick. You were right, AJ.
Yep, I know. And I'm sitting here thinking, I had no idea that the show would be like this. I don't have an expectation, but it was so much. The messages that you shared were so much deeper and meaningful than I could have hoped for. And I get emotional with this topic anyway, because it affects everyone. It's definitely affected me. It currently affects me. And not that I'm feeling this way. Let me just clarify that.
No, you're good.
But it's around me a lot because of what I do. And the messages that you shared are just so they feel very simple to someone who isn't in that space, right? Because we're like, just make a different choice. But it's not that simple when you're in the thick of it. And for you to show up as authentic and genuine as you have and share your experiences and also share how we can shift our perspective and the way that we're feeling in that moment is so substantial and so important. And we tiptoe around this subject on so many in so many experiences because it makes people uncomfortable and they don't want to talk about it. But I feel like it's of the utmost importance that we do talk about it. And the fact that you've shown up the way that you have, I know it will open doors for people to share or either share the experiences that they've had or help somebody else or even shift their thinking if they are in that place. And I have infinite gratitude for you for showing up as authentically as you have. I think you're a beautiful soul. And I am so thankful for you in showing up the way that you have. We literally have like 30 seconds. So I want to make sure everyone knows how to get in touch with you. Share your website really quick and they can find everything on there.
I need to get some more stuff on there, but there's also option to get into some email notifications. If you sign up for that, I've got a online training that I'm finishing next week. That is an online training that people can purchase with a lot of skills, techniques, understanding of suicide. I've got a total of 12 hours plus.
I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah. And so that's going to be released in about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Awesome.
And if you get on the email list there at staystrongbook.com, then we'll send that information out when we have that available to you.
Thank you so much. I wish we had more time. We'll have to have you back. This will always be a topic that's important to share. And I just am so grateful for you, Michael.
I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for
the way that you have. And hopefully we'll be connecting again soon.
Hope so.
And to all of you, wow, hold yourself close. Like, totally take care of yourself because you are enough and you are worth it. And there are people who do care. And as I always say every week, be good to yourself and be good to each other. We'll see you guys next week.